Am I the asshole for lying to family and friends about who's the infertile one between my wife and I? My wife, 32 female, and I, 32 male, have been married for 7 years and have been having unprotected for 3 years trying to have a baby. It has taken a toll on our marriage, and I admit that many times I've complained to family, friends, and coworkers about my wife's infertility. What I thought was my wife's infertility. Maybe it is because we live in Utah, but whenever the idea of us being infertile came up, people just swarmed in, giving my wife recommendations to fertility specialists. The talk was always, quote, "Oh, my wife saw Dr. Whatever, and we ended up having twins. Maybe your wife is just too stressed out." And I believed it, because my wife contracted TB when she was 20 and volunteering in another country. Her primary care, who saw when she was back home, just flippantly told her that TB could affect the genital area and prevent her body from housing a baby. But obviously, he said it in medical lingo. We finally find a doctor who straight up told us that there was nothing wrong with her fallopian tubes or her endometrium. She suggested I get tested to see that I'm not the problem. The verdict comes back that I am the one with very low sperm count. I was so shocked and went to get another opinion, which told me the same thing. I felt so shaken. And because a lot of people knew about our struggles, they also knew we went to a doctor again. At a family and friends gathering, people started asking me about what we found out. And I just panicked and said that my wife's TB was likely the cause, but not 100%. Necessarily. People saw that as my wife being the problem, and somebody even suggested I go through with divorcing her since I was 32 and complaining about being childless, saying I could be a dad within a year if it was a short marriage. What I did not realize was that my mom and aunt would jump on that suggestion and start telling friends and their kids that I was getting a divorce, and that this was my wife's fault because she shouldn't have been so reckless when she was young. What was worse was some people thought it wasn't even TB, but a bacterial genital disease. This all got back to my wife through a friend, and she is furious.
Oh, yeah. If you don't fucking fix this...
Divorce?
No. He needs to go on a loudspeaker and tell his entire fucking city, because that's so disgusting of him.
She said that she could not believe I've been painting her as the problem when she wasn't even the problem, and that she was tired of the pitying or disapproving looks she was getting in our small town, and that I needed to set the record straight or at least tell everybody to shut up and that we are not divorcing. Am I the asshole? I panicked and I felt like I didn't completely lie because TB could be exacerbating our problem, but my mom really screwed things up by making it malicious. Now I'm in over my head and I feel really bad.
Wah, you little bitch.
I want to hit him with a bat.
Next fucking story.
Am I the asshole for telling my aunt her new kitten looked like a...
I don't know why I didn't know that's where it was going.
My mom and I were visiting my uncle and his family yesterday. My aunt just got a baby Sphinx cat. It is pink, hairless, and wrinkled. She was going on and on about how beautiful it was. I will be clear. It is a very cute kitten. I, however, think that expensive pets are a waste and that she could have adopted a rescue. Lauren's fostering, if anyone needs a cat. When we were having dinner, she was sitting with the kitten in her lap, still going on about it. My uncle was rolling his eyes, and my cousins were obviously getting tired of this as well. When she asked me for the 10th time how cute I thought it was, I told her it kind of looked like a... My uncle laughed so hard he spit food out all over the table. My one cousin also laughed, but his little sister kept asking what a was.
Oh,
at
a
home.
fair question. I didn't know that until like last year.
That shows you how bad education is in the States. At home, my mom told me I was an asshole for using that word at the dinner table. I stand by my comparison. Am I the asshole?
Were you trying to be the asshole is the question.
Trying to make her shut up? Say something so outrageous and mean to make her shut up?
Clearly, you aren't happy with the fact that
she's excited.
Somebody is paying a lot of money for an expensive animal that they could actually adopt because there's 478,000 animals in the shelters every single year in the United States are put down for no other reason besides not having a home. Dogs and cats.
My future sister-in-law is legitimately stupid, and I do not want my brother to marry her. My future sister-in-law, 25, is breathtakingly stupid, and I cannot stand her, and I do not want her to be the mother of my future nieces and nephews. Our father lost his left leg below the knee in an accident before my brother and I were born, and when she first came over to our house to meet me and my parents, she said, "Oh wow, it's crazy how brother and OP didn't inherit that." We all laughed uncomfortably, thinking it was a bad joke. she didn't laugh. Even after my brother explained it wasn't a genetic defect, it was an injury, she still thought there was a possibility that my brother or I would be born without a missing leg. She told us she believed in Santa until she was 16, and her parents had to break it to her, and it broke her heart. You know the joke that the pee is stored in the balls? She thought that was real. She asked my brother how come pee didn't come out when he came during. She commented that she never sees pink lemons in the store. She literally thought pink lemonade was made from pink lemons. She didn't realize Donald Trump the actor and Donald Trump the president were the same person. And speaking of Trump, she too tried to look at the solar eclipse without sunglasses despite my brother pleading with her to keep them on. She thought blood diamonds meant that they were made from blood, and we found that out because she asked how come they aren't red. She thought in order to play for a city's sports team, you had to be from that city, so it confused her when one of our players got traded. She asked, well, what other team do we have here? She didn't think platypuses were real. She once tried to correct me when I mentioned something being $100 million. She goes, you mean $1 billion? Because she didn't think 100 million was a real number. She thought it was 99 million and then 1 billion. She thinks the moon gives off light. I tried to tell her it's the reflection from the sun, and she argued with me, saying that couldn't be true because the sun was down behind the earth, and if it was lighting the moon, it would light up the entire world. She thought Obama did the I have a dream speech. I could go on for days. She's been with my brother since he was in college. She was not in college with him. They met at a music festival. She literally said that she did not want to go to college because it seemed super hard. I have such a hard time being around her. I do not understand what the my brother sees in her. Do not get it. He's a software engineer making 6 figures, and she works as a hairdresser, so I see why she's with him. I want to ask him why he would marry such a moron. Like, it's embarrassing when she talks and he brings her around people he works with. I would be mortified if I was him. I asked my parents about having an intervention with him after he announced that he was proposing to her, and they told me no. And that they thought she was sweet, and that my brother considers her his best friend, and they work well together. Does no one else worry that she could make a terrible decision and severely affect my brother? Or when they have kids, she could put them in harm's way? What could she possibly teach them? It's not a matter of her being innocently stupid. She could have real-life consequences to being this dim-witted. My brother proposed to my fiancé, his ex, and I'm pissed. My 28 male brother, Mark, 26 male, used to date my fiancé, Jen, 26 female, a year ago. For context, they dated back in August 2022. They were only together for a month before he broke things off with her because he was bored of being in a relationship and never really wanted to settle down anyway. At the time they were dating, I was in a different state, so I had no idea he even had a girlfriend, and I had no idea who Jen was until I met her. Jen and I met at a bar when I moved back in October and hit it off very well. She was easily the most beautiful and intelligent woman I have ever met, and we met up a few times more before we made it official. Fast forward to December, and I finally bring her up to my family and propose them meeting her at Christmas. They knew I was in a relationship, but I'm not the most open about my personal life, so I kept details about her to a minimum until I knew how serious we really were. My parents asked to see pictures, and they started passing my phone around the dinner table. Mark saw it and blew up, calling me a shit brother for dating his ex-girlfriend, and he demanded I break it off with her. I refused. When I asked Jen about it, she confirmed they dated and gave me the details about their breakup. It took a few weeks, but eventually Mark stopped bringing up me dating his ex, and I thought he was over it. On Jen's birthday this year, I took her out to a fancy dinner with both of our families and her closest friends, and I asked her to marry me. Mark flipped once again and blew up about me proposing to her, which I and my sisters immediately shut down. The incident happened this past weekend. Mark had been pretty quiet about the whole thing for the last 2 months. I didn't see him much and figured he went low contact with me, which I had no problem with. Then he invited me and Jen for family dinner at his apartment with my parents and sisters. I thought it was weird, but my parents and sisters were also going, so we agreed to go. The dinner was nice, nothing too fancy, and we moved to the living room to talk. About 30 minutes into normal conversation, Mark stood up and told us he had an announcement. He made a long speech about being happy to have his family around for his big moment, then got on one knee and pulled out this cheap ring while asking Jen to marry him. Jen was confused and obviously uncomfortable and demanded that he put it away and stand up. My dad tried to make a grab for Mark, but I got to him first and punched him. I won't repeat most of it, mostly because I was too angry to even listen to most of it. But he said something along the lines of wanting to show me that Jen wasn't really into me and just wanted to get back at him. Before it could get worse, my parents rushed me out and promised to talk to him. It's been a few days since it happened, and I'm still pissed off. I don't know what to do at this point. I'm scared Jen might have second thoughts marrying me because of this. Any advice? My brother proposed to my fiancé, his ex, and I'm pissed. Part 2. I called Mark and asked him to meet up with me at my place to talk. I I told him I would prefer Jen to be around for the talk as well, but I was cool with it if he didn't want her there. He agreed to talk to the both of us and showed up at my place around noon today. It was pretty quiet for a few minutes before I started the conversation. I apologized for not warning him I would be proposing to Jen, and I apologized for hitting him. He said it was whatever, but he appreciated the apology. I told him what Jen had said about the relationship and breakup when I asked her about it, and I asked him to confirm if it was true. I pretty much said that his reaction throughout this whole thing has been extreme, and I wanted to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding their relationship or downplaying how serious they were. He confirmed that they only dated for a few weeks, and he broke up with her because he lost interest. Jen asked if he was acting like this because he still had feelings or regrets about ending things with her. He said he just didn't like seeing a girl he dated, even if it was short term, with his older brother, and as a man, I shouldn't have violated him by pursuing things with his ex. I reminded him that I had no idea they dated, so it wasn't like I consciously did this knowing their history together. He shrugged me off and said it didn't matter. I still should have broken it off. He was adamant that if the roles were reversed, he would have done the same thing, which I doubt. I asked him why he proposed to her if he didn't have any lingering feelings. Basically, to sum it up, he was talking about it to one of his buddies who was around when Mark and Jen dated, and the guy put the idea in his head that maybe Jen knew from the start that we were related and was doing this to get back at him, considering Jen had been hung up on him after they ended. He and his friend thought it would be a good idea to test it and see if they were right. So he came up with the idea to propose and see if she dumped me for him. Jen asked him to elaborate on why he thought she was hung up on him, and he told her that he heard she was asking about him following the breakup and still hanging out at the places they used to go to, so it was a valid assumption. Then, for her to pop up randomly with his brother affirmed his suspicions. Jen told him she'd only asked about him once following the breakup, and she'd been hanging out at those places with friends before they started dating, and she wouldn't avoid them because of a breakup. She also told him she was offended at the idea that she would go as low as to pursue me just to get back at him. He shrugged and gave her a half-assed apology, but said she had to see it from his point of view. He asked her if she really didn't know, and she told him that she didn't see the resemblance in us until we were in the same room, and we act nothing alike, so it never crossed her mind, and he said okay. That pretty much wrapped up the conversation. He did tell me before he left that I could take back his invite to the wedding because he can't bring himself to support our relationship knowing he used to date her. I told him he didn't have to worry about that as he was most likely going to be uninvited anyway. It's been a few hours since our talk, and I do feel better. My parents aren't too happy about him being uninvited, but they understood that it was a mutual decision and probably for the best. My sisters told me they knew he didn't have a good reason for being an asshole, and they don't blame me for not wanting him at this wedding. As of now, I'm going to limit contact with Mark, and I doubt he'll reach out to me anytime soon either.
My ex's pick-me friend lied about me and now they're crawling back. I, 26, was with my ex-boyfriend, 26, for 4 years. We moved in after 2 years of dating and were genuinely happy. I genuinely thought that I was going to marry him one day. I even moved to a different country to stay with him when his job relocated him to Europe. Throughout our relationship I noticed that one of his girlfriends, 25, didn't really like me. I've tried many times to befriend her but I gave up after constantly being on the receiving end of her cold shoulder and snarky remarks. Ex knew about this and told me that she didn't have that many girlfriends and probably didn't know how to be friends with another woman. She's the only woman in their clique of 7 guys, who were all lovely to me. On the 31st of December 2019, both of us attended a party to celebrate New Year's. I don't drink so I was completely sober. Ex got completely smashed. The next afternoon I woke up to my stuff packed and him telling me that we were done and that I had to move out. I was completely blindsided and so confused. He accused me of cheating on him. I would never do that. I think it's such a terrible thing to do. I remember crying so hard and telling him that I did no such thing but he still kicked me out. My best friend and her boyfriend, without hesitation, opened up their home to me and told me that I was welcome to stay. Bless their hearts. They're the sweetest couple ever. During that dark period of time, I was trying to process everything. I was honestly so depressed. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I felt like a zombie, like I was barely existing. I told my family what had happened and they were very upset for me and wanted me to fly back home. They live in a different country and I didn't want to travel during a pandemic and potentially put them at risk of catching this virus. While this was happening, all of our mutual friends and his family members turned against me, choosing to believe that I was a cheater and completely cut me off in support of my ex. They posted shady stuff about me online, calling me a hoe and a cheater. Rumors started to spread and it affected me so much that I deleted all social media and blocked all of them everywhere. I just wanted to disappear. As time went on, I was one day introduced to one of my best friend's friend. He was really sweet and kind. We slowly became friends, started chatting and video calling. Fast forward to June and I feel myself slowly falling in love with him. He doesn't believe what so many people say about me being a cheater and whatnot. He asks me out on a proper virtual date and I agree. We started dating and I'm so happy. I feel like he is the light at the end of my tunnel. Well, yesterday, someone from my ex's clique leaked a video on Instagram where my ex's girlfriend was boasting of how she lied and came up with this plan to break up my ex and I. She apparently paid someone to lie to my ex and tell him that I seduced him at the New Year's party and slept with him. Once that came out, a lot of my ex's friends and family members have been trying to contact me. They tried contacting my best friend who basically told them to F off. My ex came to the house and was begging for me to speak to him. It was really dramatic. I feel like I don't owe them any of my time at all and just want them to leave me alone. However, my parents think that it's a little sad that my ex is outside the house crying and begging to speak to me. They think that maybe I should give him a chance to speak to me. I feel really conflicted. I feel like I'm being too harsh on him and his group of friends. Should I establish a line of communication? What should I do?